A lot of people ask me why I keep training so hard when I already have so much going on as a dad. Today, I want to break down the real reason. Welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete Dad Podcast. Super excited to be having you tune in today's show, where I'm going to be talking about why I keep pushing my limits as a dad. Now, before I dive into today's episode, I like to go over anything in my life when it comes to fitness, nutrition, or just honestly anything that I think that you may find interesting, maybe not so interesting, but like to just get it off my chest. This week, running gonna be a little off schedule. I have to rework my routine a little bit that I like to do. Ended up running 5 miles on Sunday, where I typically do it on Monday. On Monday, I ended up doing 2 miles instead of my typical five, and then I'm gonna be going away at the end of the week, flying out on Friday, early Friday morning, catching about 7 a.m. flight, so no real time to run early Friday morning. And I'll be away over the weekend, coming back on Sunday. So, with that said, going away on a trip with my dad to a football game. So, looking forward to that. But yeah, just had to rework my schedule. Sometimes things come up where I don't typically get up on Sundays and run. I really like to definitely use Sundays as a rest day. Sometimes Saturdays I might run, but ended up running on Sundays. I ended up running on Sunday and got the 5 miles in. And then on Monday, we typically do another 5 miles, but being Columbus Day and our daughter's daycare was closed and my wife was working and I was responsible for our daughter, so I ended up just running 2 miles at the gym this morning just because I have the responsibility of watching my child and I'm going to make sure that I do the best job that I can. So just had to switch it up a little bit this week. The way that was looking into it was to get to the 30 miles this week. So I was going to do 5 on Sunday, which I did. I'm going to do 2 on Monday, which I did. Then I'm going to do 9 on Tuesday, which I'll do. And then 7 and 7. So 7 on Wednesday, 7 on Thursday. And that'll get me to my 30 miles this week. A little bit different than what I'm used to, but sometimes we have to adapt as dads and switch up our routine a little bit. So a little off schedule running this week, but gonna make sure that I get those 30 miles in this week. Now, diving into today's episode, which is again why I keep pushing my limits as a dad, and really what pushing limits to me means. It's not just physically, where it's nice to run faster and to complete certain races, but it's more mentally and emotionally. And this is more when it comes to running as of late, because I find running is more mental than anything else. I find for me, and knowing that I'm going out there and running a race that's really hard, or doing a run, and I know I have 2 or 3 miles left. I'm trying to hold a 7.5 minute pace, and I find that by pushing myself, it just it opens up new doors, and not just when it comes to fitness, but when it comes to business, when it comes to being a father, because I find that so many times our mind gives us a limitation that may or may not be true. Most of the time, it's going to not be true. I mean, if my mind, if like right now, I'm like, oh, I could go run a 3 minute mile. I could think that wholeheartedly, but in my mind, I know that's not possible. It's never been done before, and maybe someone can run a 3 minute mile. Maybe someone has run a 3 minute mile. Honestly, I don't know, but I know with where I'm right now. But the difference is saying like, okay, can I get under 40 minutes in a 5 minute mile? Yes, I can. I have to push myself, make sure that I get it done. Since I become a father, I want to show my daughter what's possible. I wanted to have her see me doing different running events, whether that's a half marathon or a marathon. And the goal is eventually to get to the Ironman, and right now it's more to do a half Ironman and then get to the full Ironman to actually become an Ironman. But just this season in my life with everything that's going on, it's just a little bit trickier. So, but again, wanted to push my limits, especially in the last year or so of doing a marathon and these half marathons and just these different races. I found that before I became a dad, it was more of an ego, like, okay, let's see how much I can lift. Let's see the speed I can do when it comes to running. But ever since I became a dad, I find it's more about having the legacy, having the purpose, having the discipline down to make sure that I'm leaving a legacy for myself, for my family, having the discipline that I'm showing up every single day, whether or not I feel like it. Now, why? One of the biggest reasons why I push my limits as a dad is I want my daughter to see my effort. I want her to see what resilience and consistency looks like. I can't just tell her this is a hard thing to do. Running these hills is hard, or running in January where everyone's bundled inside, or running outside when it's raining and it's cold. And not that I want to be an idiot and get myself sick or anything like that, but just to show her what that resiliency and that consistency looks like. I believe that pushing your limits is about becoming a better person and becoming a better example. So I want to show my daughter, like, I never thought that I could run a marathon, but something switched in my mind where I eventually had that belief. I was like, okay, maybe that this is something that I could do. And once I got that, okay, maybe that this is something that I can do, this is something that I want to do. I want to see how far and how hard that I can push myself. And I want to share that with my daughter. So one day when she asks me, do you think I can run a marathon? And I can tell her the exact mindset that I had, and what I went to do to go about it to really push myself. And again, I can only tell my daughter so much. If I tell her, oh, you should go run a marathon, it's going to be very hard to train for. It's going to be a very grueling race, especially your first one. But I've never done it. Well, now I actually can tell her what I've done, and I can set that example for her. It's that balancing your drive with your presence. I find that there can be this tension between ambition and family time, and it's trying to balance it all the time while also pushing your limits. And that's why in this season of my life, I had held off on training for an Ironman because I knew how much training went into just doing a sprint marathon or sprint triathlon. And that's obviously nowhere near doing a full Ironman. But I was like, I have to really commit myself to this. I don't want to go halfway or not do the full training. I want to make sure that I have the commitment in my mind. And if I don't have that commitment in my mind, like, what's the point of me going out there and doing it? Like, I want to go and do it as fast as I can at this point within, it's not like I'm going to be coming out and sprinting a marathon or anything dumb like that, but making sure that I'm in the best spot possible when I go out and I do this really hard event. Now, when it comes to pushing my limits, it's just making time for it. It's either early morning training, it's finishing a run before my daughter wakes up to make sure that I can spend time with my family. Because pushing my limits doesn't mean neglecting what matters most. It's about earning my time back with my family. So just because I want to go out there and push myself doesn't mean I'm going to be spending less time with my family, because at the end of the day, that's what matters most to me, more than fitness and nutrition and honestly anything. It's family first. That's who I have at the end of the day. Obviously, I want to be healthy. I want to be fit for my family. But at the end of the day, if I had a plan to go on a 10-mile, 20-mile run today, and something came up with my daughter and she was sick and she needed someone to stay home, okay, I'm canceling plans. I'm staying with her. And that's happened before, where there's times where you predict that I'm going to be able to do a certain workout today or a certain run, and having a child, if there's anything predictable, it's that everything is unpredictable, and having to switch up your routine and what's going on to do what's best for the family. Now, when you stop pushing yourself, I would say that you lose your energy, you lose your confidence, and your leadership all decline. You're no longer setting an example. You're going through the motions. And most people go through the motions their entire life, whether that's working a similar job, never pushing themselves too hard, never growing into the person that they can become. And I don't want that to happen to you, especially when it comes to fitness and nutrition, where it's easy to fall into a routine of, okay, you maybe didn't work out, now you're working out, now you're in this routine of you're going to the gym, you're running, you have it down, but you start to get comfortable with your routine. Maybe you don't switch up your workouts, maybe you don't switch up your running routes, maybe you don't push yourself when you're running And then over time, you start to lose a little bit of that energy, that confidence, and again, that leadership. For me, I just feel is that I have a responsibility to stay sharp, which is for my health, for my mindset, and my family's future. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be someone that's in their 60s having trouble walking or can't take care of themselves, or someone that's grossly overweight on a plane sitting next to someone making them uncomfortable because taking up too much of the seat. I'm sure we've always all been there, and that's not to talk down about people who are overweight, but that's not what I want to be in my life. And I just realized we have a finite amount of time here, and not that I would say I'm old by any means, but like the way that I look at it in my life is I'm like, okay, I'm 28 right now. I'm closer to 29, at this stage in my life, 29 in the next couple of months, and it's like, okay, the average age of retirement is 65. Let's just say I dump it down to 60, and that gives me for working 30 years. Like, what do I want to be doing for the next 30 years? Do I want to be doing what I'm doing now, or do I want to do something that gets me excited? When it comes to fitness, I know I'm pretty much in my prime right now. And when I'm in my 40s and 50s, am I going to regret not training for these events because my body could handle the punishment a little bit more? And I just realized that now's the time to push myself because I don't know what could happen tomorrow. Could I get, not to sound morbid, hit by a car running, or get some sort of injury that derails me? Again, not that I want that to ever happen, but not that I can, get fixated on that. But you just think like, okay, if something happens to me, and and as you start to get older, and again, not that I'm not old, but you've seen some people that I've gone to school with that have passed away, and you're like, wow, like they're my age. Or you see folks that are in phenomenal shape and something happens to them, and same thing, they're gone in an instant. And I'm thinking like, okay, like not that I'm 30, but yeah, that's right around the corner. That's not too far off. And then it's gonna go by fast, especially when you fall into the routine of living, day to day life, and just realizing like I don't want to settle because I only have so much time left, especially when it comes to working and growing and pushing myself. And not that I'm ever going to stop working and growing, but if I do, like, I don't want to look back when I'm younger and be like, oh, I never did the Ironman that I wanted to do, or I never started that business that I wanted to because what? Because I was scared because I didn't want to do it. So it just for me, it's really thinking about why I can't settle, why I don't want to settle, and just focusing on myself and the person that I want to become. Now, how I keep going and how I keep pushing my limits as a dad is I just have that structure in place. I know when we're gonna get up in the morning. I know what we're gonna be doing for a workout. I know what I want to do for progressive overload. I know which running routes I'm going to typically be doing. Maybe I'll mix it up every now and then, depending on if I get bored of a running route and I have to find another one. But I just make sure that I have this structure in place. And by having this structure, it's even when I'm tired and I don't feel like pushing my limits, by having these systems and relying on these systems, it allows me to follow through with my purpose and not depend so much on the feelings that I have. Now, I hope you enjoyed today's episode on why I keep pushing my limits as a dad. And I hope you tune into next week's episode where I discuss using fitness to manage anxiety and overwhelm.